Hello, welcome to another round of the Lions Kool-Aid Corner. The gang is back together here. I'm Derek Hutchinson. I handle our sports content on clickondetroit.com. Here with Ken, our web manager, special projects editor Ben Bell, and Jason Goldthorpe. He needs no introduction.
But I'll take one.
I'm pretty sure this group could talk about the Lions-Rams game the rest of the week, but Coach Campbell says we're moving on to Tampa Bay.
Believe me, it feels good to win. It feels good to do that, but I'm so much into right now the next one. You know, the next thing here, it's right in front of us, and it's all about the next one. And how do we stay right where we're at, make some corrections, and get ready for this next one, the next home game, because I just know the opportunity we've got here.
All right, so the last time the Lions and the Buccaneers played, it was week 6, right? 3 months ago. And the story of that game was the Lions defense holding the Bucs to 251 yards, 2 field goals. Jason, would you say since then the Lions defense has gotten better or worse?
Well, it definitely got worse, but then it suddenly got a little better from there. And now remember I had that weird theory, I'm like, if you're going to be this bad, just try and make a couple plays here and there. And they kind of have done that a little bit.
That's exactly what happened.
It's a huge bend, don't break defense. And while they seem to designate every game, CeeDee Lamb, go ahead, have a career day. Puka Nacua, go ahead, your turn. But then everybody else is just, we're going to hold everybody else down.
Yeah.
So I would say they kind of had their ups and downs, but they're kind of finding their way, which is a bend, don't break.
Yeah, I even call it maybe boom or bust. Like they're either getting a sack or a turnover, or they're giving up a touchdown. But against the Rams, it really was bend but don't break, because those 3 red zone stops were huge. Ben, do you feel more confident in the Lions defense than you did back in week 6? Because I definitely do not.
Yeah, because they're starting to play really well on the big stage, and I think that only makes them better. We got James Houston. Is he coming back?
We'll probably find out today.
They need
Campbell.
The only big area they need improvement on is the front 4. I think once they get more pressure, the secondary will look so much better. But I think it really hurts them when you got to cover for 10 seconds, 7 seconds every play.
There's a GM that I love to quote, and he goes, when you have to count 3 Mississippi, it's really tough on a quarterback. But you count 5 Mississippi, and every one of those guys is going to get open.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
How are you going to guard an NFL receiver for that long?
Right.
And I think that's the key right there. The front needs to get pressure.
Yep.
They do always seem to put the star wide receiver on Cam Sutton, though. So
Right.
I kind of feel bad for him. Like, are they just leaving him out there? Like,
Well, with Mosley gone, he's the
luck,
clear
buddy.
cornerback 1, right? I mean, he has to take that assignment.
But man, he's had a rough second half of the year.
You think they should just put Vildor on the main guy?
I don't know. I mean, it's like Jerry Jacobs was like abducted by aliens. Like, where the heck did that guy go? And then all of a sudden,
I think that's when they got good on the secondary. Suddenly they're like, hey, we're going to put Melfano in there.
Yeah, say what you want about Vildor, but he's made some plays.
He has.
I'm kind of like, where did this guy come from?
Man, Cam Sutton, like the first 5-6 weeks, we didn't even hear his name. We were like, good job,
Yes.
man.
Yeah,
We don't
awesome.
wanna hear
I thought he was a
and
shutdown.
now it's like every time there's a bomb, we're like, there's Cam.
I looked back at the Kool-Aid Corner from the Bucs game, and we were feeling really good about this defense. We did talk about Cam Sutton, how they never call his name. That means he's a great quarterback. And since then, it's just been completely the opposite, So I don't know if it's all to do with Jerry Jacobs, but, as soon as they put in, like you guys said, Vildor for the Broncos game, the defense saw
Yeah, they shook up the lineup there, and it made a difference immediately.
Vildor is a cool name. Yeah. Okay, shifting to the other side of the ball. You've got a Jared Goff versus Baker Mayfield divisional round game. Not exactly what you would think about when you're talking about this deep into the playoff quarterbacks.
Right.
But last time they met, Jared Goff had his best game of the season yards-wise.
Yep.
He threw for 353, 2 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, had 206 and an interception. We're going to put that up right here to Will Harris. Which of those quarterbacks right now are you feeling better about?
Jared Goff, absolutely. I mean, I didn't see a Baker Mayfield chant down in Tampa Bay. It's got to be Goff.
But he is playing a lot better. I mean,
He's
he
playing
looked
a lot better.
very good against the Eagles, and that was with 6 or 7
But
drop
looking
passes.
good against that Eagles team, the stage that they were at, I mean, they were reeling. Anybody could have looked good. I mean, the Giants looked great against that Eagles team. So
I didn't do my homework, but right before the Bucs won these last 2, they dropped 2 against the Saints and almost to Carolina. They beat Carolina.
Yeah,
but
they've won
horrible.
5
They
of
scored
6.
9 points.
Yeah, they scored 9
1
points.
in
So
16, Carolina 2.
it's
whatever.
he keeps saying we're a different team. I'm like, maybe, but you didn't look that great a few weeks ago. So.
Were you more worried about the Rams than you are about the Bucs?
100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I think that's how most of us feel. But Baker, he did have that weird game against the Panthers at the end of the season. I'm not sure what was going on there, but the rest of those games during that winning streak, he's actually looked pretty good. It looks like he's got his swagger back a little bit.
He still makes a lot of mistakes. I'm sorry, Ian, but he makes a lot of mistakes. Like if you think about like who's more prone to making that big dumb throw compared like Goff and Baker, it's Baker by a million.
It's definitely,
like he's gonna do something crazy, and if the defense doesn't capitalize on that, like they drop a pick or they just don't see it, like that's gonna hurt them. They gotta make sure they got eyes on him because he's gonna throw some wild balls up there.
I've noticed Baker Mayfield will throw with the same velocity if it's a 2-yard pass or a 90-yard pass. He's throwing it with the same strength.
Yeah, Ben was blaming some of those drops on Baker the other day, I think.
I turn on the TV, I see, a 60-yard pass right into Mike Evans' hands, drop. A 40-yard pass, drop.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is the team we're going to play? Okay.
You have to admit, though, Jared Goff, at the time of the first Bucs game, we were talking about extending Jared Goff, right? Making him a top 5 highest paid quarterback. And then we did go through a stretch where he was turning the ball over a lot. A ton. Yeah.
Guilty.
Ben doubted a little
Guilty.
bit. I doubted a little bit for sure.
I'll
He
own
was
it.
fumbling the ball. He was throwing interceptions. So I think it's a little hard for us to talk about Baker making mistakes when Jared Goff is prone to having those sorts of games.
No, not in that way though. Baker's like reckless in a way. Like
Yeah.
it's different. Like Goff will just like make a bad throw, like
Or
once
throw-
game where you're like,
yeah.
what are
Try
you
and make
no,
a,
no,
or he
a
just gets
lateral
pressure in
out
his
of
face.
nowhere
Yeah,
that
what
goes
was that
bounce.
lateral? Oh my
Seriously,
God.
There's always one of those. We just got lucky enough it wasn't a turnover.
But Baker has throws where you're like, where was that? Where is like what's happening?
Yeah, Baker is
Yeah.
one of those guys, I think he thrives in chaos a little bit because he's going to make the chaotic mistake in a normal play, but then he can make sort of an amazing
both.
play out of nothing. So
he does both.
we've got our resident Baker fan, Ian, behind the camera shaking his head. But
Who you
I
don't
think-
realize is a doppelganger
Yeah.
for Baker Mayfield, almost to his voice.
Yeah.
There he is.
There, you brought him
Tell
up.
me.
All right.
Hey Baker, tell us about all the doubters you had.
Yeah, so, okay, we're all taking Goff, but I think it's a little closer than people give him credit for. All right, but moving into the backfield, last time we played the Bucs, it was Jahmyr Gibbs was inactive, and David Montgomery got hurt like second drive of the
fell
game.
on the ball.
Yeah, he fell on the ball, right?
Oh, that's right. Gibbs was inactive.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was Craig Reynolds' big block game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
I was
right.
just going to say, we actually have that highlight here. Craig Reynolds
This
only
was
went
awesome.
for 15 yards on 10 carries, but he did do this. I mean, this was obviously the block
Oh,
of the season.
favorite
Here
play
it
of the
comes.
year.
Boom! Oh, that was awesome. So, yeah, this time, Lions have both of their guys fully healthy. They both just put up 68 total yards and a touchdown against the Rams. So, how much of a difference does it make having those two guys against this Buccaneers defense?
Huge difference. I don't think they're going to have to rely on Goff like they did this first round. Craig Reynolds was our leading rusher. So, you got Montgomery and Gibbs. I expect this to be way more balanced. Goff shouldn't have to do that much.
Right.
But if he wants to, all for it. But, I expect this to be very heavy. I think Gibbs could have a breakout this game. I feel like he is just due for one of those long runs of 70 yards, and I think he's going to get one this
They kind of got away from that in the last game, and that hurt them. And in the second half, they can't have another second half where you're not scoring points. Certainly can't have another scoreless fourth quarter and only rack up, I think it was like 70 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
You can't do that this time around, but I think they're going to make more of a commitment to make sure these guys are both involved and that the running game plays a part, because that's what makes Jared Goff better, is having that play action.
Kind of an odd second half. Only had 4 drives, so it felt like a really bad offensive second half. But really, they had the drive where they got the 54-yard field goal, and then the one where they were able to run out the clock. So, but I agree. They scored touchdowns on the first 3 drives, and then 3 points the rest of the game. You can't do that anymore.
That Rams game, I keep saying, it did not feel like a wild card round. It felt like the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
The stakes were so high, and it felt like one of those games where both teams are just trying to hang on to move to the next round. And the Lions played at such a high level. My only worry is that, the Bucs, can they keep it at that level all week throughout practice?
Right.
Can Dan Campbell keep these guys at that level? Because I'm kind of worried about a little bit of a letdown.
After the emotional high of this.
Yeah, you know. And
But see, I think he's proven that they can, after they clinched the division, I thought for sure going to Dallas, that was just going to be a massive letdown. And their defense played better than they had all season almost.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we
I
just
think I'll
heard
keep
from
them
Campbell a moment ago. He's looking ahead. He said
Yeah.
we have a great opportunity because he knows that the Lions are one win away from an NFC Championship game, which, would have seemed crazy talk a few weeks ago.
I keep wanting to say that word, but I'm like, just take care of the Bucs first, and then I'll say NFC.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can't say it. I'm trying to.
Coming around.
I'm trying to say it. I know.
Can't even,
I know.
This is the guy earlier this year who goes, they're going to win the next 4. Bam, 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 bam. And then
I'm evolving.
All right, last guy I want to touch on, Jamison Williams in that game made his first big play after the suspension. Remember the touchdown pass from Jared Goff? This really kind of sealed the game because the Lions were
Turn the other way.
stalling. Come back to the ball. There
God,
he is.
what a weird game this was.
It was a strange game, but it felt like the Lions dominated.
It was the
pretty much
creamsicles,
throughout.
man. When you wear creamsicle jerseys like that, the whole universe is just like.
Why is it so exciting when J-Mo gets a touchdown? We just want to see
Because our
this
bar
kid.
is so low.
Because
Because
they traded up
I
for
feel
him
like
in the
Detroit
first
wants
round.
to see this guy succeed so bad, and he's such a likable kid.
Yeah.
That I want to see him rise to be a star.
So my question is, are you expecting something similar out of him today? Can he make a big play and change this game, assuming that Khalif Raymond isn't back?
I hope so.
Yeah, I would hope that Ben Johnson's got something dialed up. They didn't seem to utilize him as well as they could have last week, and
There are a couple of plays though where they sent him.
Yeah, it seemed like he was poised to have a huge game, and maybe the Rams were ready for that. But I think the key to the game is more going to be just Baker Mayfield's not going to handle pressure and the chaos of the surroundings as well as Matthew Stafford did. Matthew Stafford played phenomenal last week, and we were still able to hold him in check and win the game.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get to a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk predictions with a very familiar face. All right, we're back, and we're going to talk about some of our preseason predictions with Jason and Devin Skillion, who will love to hear how close he was to just nailing exactly how the Lions season went.
And look at him; he's got the cat that ate the canary. Look right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna read Devin's exact prediction here for you guys, and we're gonna put it up on the screen. I've got the Lions going 12-5. Yes, it is very lofty, and the weight of expectation may prove a bit much for a young team. It makes me nervous that so many are expecting so much, but I'm a believer in Jared Goff, and even if the defense isn't as good as we all hope, I still think the Lions can outscore most teams 12-5, should win the division, and lead to a cherished home playoff game. Devin, come on, man. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, where do you park the time machine?
Yeah.
What's that?
Where do you park the time machine? Yeah, to know that. I mean, that was exactly right.
Well, I will say this, though. Somebody in the newsroom predicted 13-4. And that actually might be more accurate because I am choosing not to recognize the NFL's official tally from Dallas. I am sending my own electors to that tally. So probably 13-4 should have been more accurate because I think we all feel like the Lions kind of got hosed on that. But I didn't expect the Lions to lose at home on Thanksgiving. Didn't expect them necessarily to lose at Chicago, but I kind of thought they would play well, but probably lose to Kansas City in the opener. And there was, I don't remember which other one, so I may have missed on the specifics, but it was funny. I went to Ken at the end of the regular season, and I said, Ken, it seems to me somebody in those predictions got it exactly right. And Ken said, really? Who? I'm like, Ken, you're the one who asked for them. Is that what happens? We just put these in a jar somewhere and then forget that they ever happened?
I believe he uses it for his bonfire at home, apparently, like kindling. He just gets his content and then burns it all up.
Speaking of the bonfire, I've got Jason Colthorpe's prediction here. It wasn't that, but I think Jason kind of represents the
I am proud of this. Read it, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, so he was correct last year. He predicted 9-8 last year when the Lions went 9-8. But a couple of the points that I want to highlight on this, the entire world loves the Lions, and as a lifelong Lions fan, that sends up red flags big enough to block an Eddie Murray 52-yard field goal attempt. And I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Well, when the whole world thinks one way, it's just, we all know. It's just like this last week. Did you watch those pregame shows? All you saw was everybody picking Dallas,
right.
Everybody picking the Rams. And what happened? They both go down. Well, I'm a huge believer in not tempting the wrath of the thing high atop the whatever. So when it comes to the Lions, I kind of slow play it a little bit, and I just don't want to get too greedy.
Right.
So I really felt in my heart, I go, yeah, it feels like an 11-6 kind of team that will win the division. I just didn't want to speak it out there and chance anything. But I also was a firm believer something is going to cost us a game that we should have won, Dallas,
Boom.
and maybe one more, and that would be so Lions if they, are supposed to be so much better and end up with a 9-8 record.
If it felt a lot better, but it didn't show up
right.
in the record. Yeah.
But still won the division,
Exactly.
which is kind of what I was thinking. Oh, you just watch, but
Yeah.
What's interesting there, Jason, what that means though is that you went with the same record 2 years in a row. You didn't expect them to be considerably better than they were the year before, even with that horrible start and strong finish.
No, I did. I honestly did. I thought they would be better, but somehow in such a Lions way, they would get stuck at the same record. Somehow. That would just be so Lions. I go, they're so much better. But, hey, it's all under the bridge now, and we're cruising. We're in the right spot.
I would love, we should do some, we should ceremonially, I think we should ceremonially go over in the side yard there on the lot, and actually maybe over at Ford Field or at Allen Park. But we need to have a burial ceremony for the phrase SOL. I am so beleaguered and tired of it, and it covered all manner of sins. And yes, there was so much. I mean, I went through them last week on our pre-playoff game special. The 10-second runoff. Just on and on and on. That one, right? Of course, Tucker hits a 65-yard field goal against us at an NFL record. Those kind of things. But there is nothing about this team that feels SOL. I mean, even when this team loses, it's not in an old way. I mean, maybe I guess you could argue the Dallas thing was. But I really just love that we have been able to dispatch that narrative, because Dan Campbell is just a completely different animal.
Yeah,
and he's the reason that Dallas game didn't cause the season to go off the rails.
Yeah.
I mean, he's able to hold it together. And as a matter of fact, that's why I love the team so much. A month ago, we were talking about how nervous I was. You watch, the Rams are going to come in here. It's the worst team they can play in the first round, and we finally get a home game. And yet that Dallas ending happened, and it galvanized them.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you heard Aiden Hutchinson after the game say, we actually kind of wanted to go back to Dallas. So it was like, he really had this team ready to go. Devin, I know you were at the Rams game, and I've heard from everybody who was there that the atmosphere was the best they've ever felt. But I need to know, how were you feeling, and how was the stadium as Matthew Stafford got the ball with 5 minutes to play and only needed a field goal to win the game?
Well, by then, Derek, I had to be back at the station. Sunday night, I had to be back in time for the newscast so I had to leave with about 2 minutes left in the third quarter. So, and I missed that and I can just imagine what it was like, because I will tell you, the moments leading to kickoff were really emotional. It was very, very. I and everybody around me was very, very verklempt with the whole thing and the screaming for Jared Goff. But yeah, watching that game, I thought, wow, we're going to get Stafforded by the guy that, taught us what it is to be Matt Stafford at the end of the game. But I can't remember who said this earlier, just now, a few minutes ago. I felt confident that as long as there was enough time on the clock, that if we just didn't let them run the clock down, whether we needed a field goal or a touchdown, I had this confidence that this team would go find a way to answer. Because the one thing that this team does, and goes back to what you just said about what happened in Dallas, this team never shrinks from a big moment. Look how good they were in prime time, all those games this year. And when it's time, when they need a 2nd and 9 to seal the game, at the end of the game, they just fire it in. And part of this is the faith that everybody wants to complain. A lot of people want to complain about how Dan Campbell plays way too close to the edge on some of these decisions. But there's the football side of this and the analytics side of this. And then there's the side where Dan Campbell is telling everybody in that locker room, I believe in everything you do, and everything I ask you to do, I know you can do. That's what those decisions add up to. And these guys just never seem to shrink when the moment's big.
All right. Devin, real quick, before we let you go, since you have your finger on the pulse of this team so well, what are you expecting on Sunday?
I wouldn't. There's a lot of people that are already doing an end zone dance. That's not how the playoffs tend to go. I expect this will be tough, and I actually wonder, can the crowd be as instrumental and as big as they were for the Rams, because they can't have a letdown either, because those 2 timeouts were fan-driven, and it ended up making a really big difference. Yeah. But I fully expect the Lions will win this game. They're a better team than Tampa Bay.
The Vegas line is 6.5 currently. It's going the right way for Lions fans. I think they're going to be right on the money. I think it's going to be about a 24-17 game.
Yeah,
I think
that
they're
sounds
not
about
quite
right.
as good as the Rams, but like Devin said, it's going to be close. And Devin, real quick, if you do bury the SOL, you got to give Jeff Daniels a call. He may be responsible, along with Peyton Manning, for breaking whatever curse there ever was.
I talked to Jeff the other night, and he said that Peyton and the two of them have been texting about, what's going on. And I jokingly said, but I'm actually giving this some serious thought. Jeff and Peyton Manning should start a TV series where they travel around the world and try to rid sports teams of a curse.
Oh my gosh, that's a great idea.
Right?
Yes.
Bar rescue for sports teams.
Omaha Productions is already
there's
on
so
it.
many of them. We know a bunch of them obviously in the U.S., but there are so many of them in world sports. I think that would be an amazing thing to watch these guys try to figure out how. And something happened.
Just no rivals of any of the Detroit Major 4 sports teams.
Yeah.
Stay away from them, and that's
they
fine.
can keep struggling. Yeah. Devin, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at noon Sunday for the pregame show.
We'll be there. Looking forward to it. It'll be fun, man.
Lions.
And so great that NBC's got both these games. I mean, we couldn't have asked for more.
That's it. Yep.
All right, thanks, guys. Good talking to you.
Oh, that's fun.
All right, we're back. So Devin Scillian has spoken, right? He's feeling really confident. And what I want to know from you guys is that, do you think it's an advantage or a disadvantage for the team that won the regular season matchup when you meet again in the postseason?
I think when it's the third game and you've won the first 2, that always seems to be
tough to win 3, right?
Yeah, that always seems to be the kryptonite for that team. But I don't think it's going to have too much of a bearing. Like we said, Gibbs wasn't in that game. He was in Tampa.
Feels like
I think it
so
only
long
plays.
ago,
Yeah,
right?
it feels
like a totally different season ago.
The team that lost, I guess they know what not to do.
Yeah.
They should score more than 6. Start there.
I think it's interesting that both the Bucs and the Lions, and this is just kind of how the NFL goes, but they both sort of went through a dip after that game and then sort of hit the ground running again going into the playoffs. So I do think that we're going to see both of their best. Something interesting that's going on while the Lions are preparing for the Buccaneers is that both coordinators are taking head coaching interviews. I mean, I heard today that they have a total of 10 between them. So really? Dan Campbell talked a little bit this week about how they are juggling preparing for the Bucs and also those interviews.
I mean, the best we can do is it'll have to be Friday and a little bit of Saturday. So Friday afternoon after practice is done, they're going to have to crunch them in there. They're already working on scheduling it. And then Saturday, there'll be a small window in there after practice, before night meetings. And that's it. I mean, we're in one of those crazy years. Well, first of all, they're both, like I said, those are worthy candidates. And I think both of them should be at the top of everybody's list. But we're in one of these unique years where there's a ton of jobs available. And so that's also one, they all want to speak to them, and they should. But that puts a stress on them on us. But they'll do the best they can with it, make the most of it, which they should, and then but be prepared for us to get ready for the next game.
So obviously, the coordinators have been such a big part of the Lions' success this season. Ben Johnson is the most obvious one, but even Aaron Glenn against the Rams, he made some critical halftime adjustments, and that defense really brought that win home. Do you, Jason, have any concern about their attention sort of being split this week?
Yeah. I mean, you can't not be, because normally you'd be thinking about nothing but this game, and obviously they're going to be thinking about other things.
Right. And these interviews are very intensive, right? Like you're studying the roster of the team that you're interviewing for, and you're presenting a plan for if you get the head coaching job. So this is like a massive homework assignment.
I don't like it. I want every advantage that the Lions could get. When it snowed the other day, I kept thinking, oh man, they're flying from LA, they're going to land in the snow. That's got to be something, right? I was looking for every angle. So this seems like a disadvantage. I don't like it. Not at all.
Speaking of
they're
the weather,
just Zoom calls, right? I would imagine if they got 10
probably,
meetings, they're probably
yeah.
they're not
Did
flying
you
all
hear
over
the
country.
reporter who asked Todd Bowles if he was preparing
That
his
was
team
great.
for the
was
cold
great.
weather, and he said, "Well, Detroit has a dome, right?
they
have a dome. They're gonna simulate it.
I don't care at all.
You don't care at
I think
all?
this is just it's business in the NFL, right? Like every good team, their coordinators are interviewing for jobs right now. Like every team in the playoffs right now has at least somebody interviewing for another job.
Probably true.
Those guys probably have teams too that are doing a lot of that research for them, putting together that sort of like interview portfolio.
Agents.
It's not like Ben Johnson's in his office like by himself, which is like up all night, like
He did this
eating,
last
like,
year. He went through
pizza.
pouring over
circuit
Seattle's
last year.
roster.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm sure there's a team helping him with that, and he's just kind of like presenting it, in an interview form. But those guys are going to be ready to go, man. Plus, they already played the Bucs. They got half the homework done already.
Yeah, I do think that helps. I do think that helps, and Dan Campbell talked about that too. Before the Monday night game, he said, we're doing a lot of work on Philly today because we sort of already have our homework done on the Bucs. We just need to review it since we played them earlier this season. So, Ben, earlier you talked about an emotional letdown. Obviously, there's a lot of, this is a huge game on Sunday, but there's a lot of factors that aren't there that were there last weekend. You've got the Stafford factor last week, the first home playoff game this week. The fans will be great, obviously, they always are, but it's not, the pent-up 30 years of frustration all coming out. So that letdown concern that you have, how great of a concern is that?
It's like my own personal concern, but then like you started talking about Dan Campbell and how he had those guys prepared for Dallas, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We have a coach that I trust that is going to have these guys ready to go. He's not going to let them do that, but I will still worry about it just because for me, I was so jacked up for, all week, Matthew Stafford's return, and then we get Tampa Bay, and I'm just like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Any concern about a letdown, Jason?
A little bit, just simply because I know how I feel as a fan. That was the game. We were talking earlier. I really thought the Rams game is going to be more of a challenge than even if they play the 49ers.
Right.
I honestly think that. It's the one I worry about least. But once they won that game, I just feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off my shoulders as a Lions fan.
Yeah.
Yep.
What if the Packers win?
If the Packers win,
I think I would rather play. Well, no, you got to have a home game.
Atmosphere.
Yeah.
You have the atmosphere.
That would be a big one.
Yeah.
But if the Packers go into San Fran and beat San Francisco, I would be way more worried
gonna be
about
a
the
tough-
Packers than
yeah,
I
they're
am
gonna
right
be a
now.
tough out
Because
for
then
sure.
talk about being on a roll.
Yeah.
All right, last concern I've got on my list is the receiver thing, right? We talked about Justin Jefferson twice against us, CeeDee Lamb, and then last week Puka Nacua. All of them put up they averaged something like 170 yards and a touchdown between them all. You look at Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Neither of them is really of that level, but they've got two good ones. Does either of those guys scare you for a huge game?
Oh man, this is easy. Bet the Lions -6.5. Bet the over on Mike Evans. It's a double dip. It's a double dip play, boys. Come on.
Mike Evans will have
Easy.
150 yards and we'll still win.
Yeah,
And if you lose the bet, send your bill to Ken Haddad at Channel 4 News.
Right, it would be just like Mike Evans to play so badly last week, dropped everything, and then this week, of course,
Yeah.
200.
he'll do it.
Yeah.
Well,
But that's all right.
I heard they assigned Cam Sutton to Mike Evans. He's going to have 150 easy.
Yeah.
All right, so you heard from Devin Skillian. He thinks we're going to win. These guys aren't worried about anything, so obviously we're feeling really good. We'll be back with another Lions Kool-Aid Corner tomorrow.
Want to head to the lobby?
Let's go.
Oh, I missed it.
They cut it off.